There's a city where every building serves two purposes: its official function and surveillance. Where the width of the streets isn't determined by traffic needs, but by parade requirements. Where apartment assignments tell you exactly where you stand in the political hierarchy. And where the entire urban layout is designed to make resistance nearly impossible. This is Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. And it might be the most deliberately designed city in human history. Today, we're going to decode its hidden language. Because once you understand how Pyongyang works, you'll never look at city planning the same way again. Most cities evolve organically over centuries. Streets follow old paths. Neighborhoods grow around markets and gathering places. The urban fabric reflects thousands of individual decisions made by millions of people over generations. Pyongyang is different. In 1950, during the Korean War, American bombing reduced the city to rubble. Estimates suggest that by the war's end, only 2 buildings in the entire city center were still standing. Everything else was destroyed. This was a catastrophe. But for Kim Il-sung, it was also an opportunity. He could build an entire capital city from scratch. Design it exactly as he wanted. Create a physical environment that would reinforce his power for generations. And that's precisely what he did. Working with Soviet urban planners, Kim designed a city that functions as propaganda made physical. Every element serves the state. Nothing is accidental. Start with the basic layout. Pyongyang is built on a grid, but not the democratic grid of a city like New York, where blocks are roughly equal and any location is accessible from any other. Pyongyang's grid is hierarchical. The central axis, Kwangbok Street, is absurdly wide, 100 meters across. That's wider than a football field is long. And it points directly at the Kumsusan Palace, where the preserved bodies of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il are displayed. The message is clear. All roads lead to the leadership. All of Pyongyang exists to glorify the Kim dynasty. And the width of those roads isn't for cars. It's for military parades, for mass demonstrations, for the choreographed spectacles that define North Korean public life. Now, you might be thinking this is just typical authoritarian aesthetic. Big buildings, wide streets. Every dictatorship does it. But Pyongyang goes much further. The architecture itself is designed to control behavior at a level that's almost invisible. And the housing system? It's a form of social engineering that most people outside North Korea have never heard of. Let me show you how it works. In most cities, you choose where you live. Maybe you're limited by money. Maybe by job location. But fundamentally, you have agency. In Pyongyang, the state assigns your apartment. And your assignment tells everyone exactly where you rank. The system is called Songbun. It's a caste classification that evaluates every North Korean based on their family's perceived loyalty to the regime. Your ancestors fought for the revolution? High Songbun. Your grandparents were landlords or had relatives who fled south? Low Songbun. And this classification, which you're born into and can almost never change, determines everything. Your job, your education, and crucially, your address. The best apartments are in the center of Pyongyang, close to the monuments and government buildings. These go to the party, elite, and their families. As you move outward, the buildings get smaller, older, less maintained. The periphery is for workers with acceptable but unremarkable backgrounds. And beyond the city limits? Those are for people the regime wants to keep close enough to control, but not close enough to matter. This isn't just symbolism. It's surveillance architecture. The apartment blocks are designed with minimal privacy between units. Walls are thin. Neighbors can hear everything. And in each building, there are designated informants whose job is to report suspicious behavior to the authorities. The buildings themselves are almost always towers. Pyongyang loves high rises. Not because land is expensive, but because vertical housing is easier to monitor than horizontal. One entrance, one exit. Elevators that require electricity, which the state controls. If the regime wants to lock down a building, they simply cut the power. Suddenly, Climbing 20 flights of stairs is the only way out. Even the balconies are controlled. In most Pyongyang apartments, balconies are enclosed or extremely small. This prevents residents from displaying personal items, from hanging laundry that might individualize their unit. Everything must look uniform from outside. The city presents a single face to the world. But surveillance architecture is only part of the story. Pyongyang has another design feature that's even more clever and even more disturbing. It's called the micro-district system, and it explains why organized resistance in North Korea is nearly impossible. Once you understand it, you'll see why defectors describe Pyongyang as a beautiful prison. The micro-district is a Soviet concept that Pyongyang perfected. The idea is simple. Instead of having one city center with shops, services, and public spaces, you create dozens of self-contained neighborhoods. Each micro-district has its own school, clinic, shops, and workplace. Residents can meet all their daily needs without ever leaving their immediate area. On paper, this sounds convenient. In practice, it's a control mechanism. Because if you never need to travel across the city, you never have reason to meet people from other neighborhoods. You never build connections beyond your immediate community. And you never develop the network of relationships that would be necessary for organized dissent. Think about how revolutions happen. People from different backgrounds come together. They meet in public squares, in cafes, in workplaces that draw from across the city. They share grievances. They realize they're not alone. And gradually, individual frustration becomes collective action. Pyongyang's design makes this almost impossible. The micro-district system ensures that most residents interact only with people who live and work right next to them. People who are probably from similar Songbun backgrounds. People who the authorities already know and monitor. Meeting someone from across the city requires explanation. Why are you there? What business do you have outside your district? Even the public spaces work this way. Kim Il-sung Square, the famous plaza where North Korea holds its massive rallies, is designed for organized events only. There are no benches, no cafes nearby, no reason to linger unless you're participating in an official gathering. Spontaneous assembly is architecturally impossible. The subway system reinforces this. Pyongyang's metro is famously deep, built to double as bomb shelters. But it also has an unusual feature. The trains don't run very frequently. The stations are widely spaced. The system isn't designed for convenient commuting. It's designed to move people to and from state functions, then return them to their districts. Casual exploration of the city is discouraged by the infrastructure itself. Everything I've described so far serves a defensive purpose, controlling the population, preventing dissent. But Pyongyang's design also has an offensive function. The city itself is a weapon of propaganda. And there's one building that demonstrates this better than any other. A building that was supposed to be the tallest hotel in the world, and instead became the most famous failure in architectural history. The Ryugyong Hotel dominates Pyongyang's skyline. You literally cannot miss it. 330 meters tall. 105 stories. A concrete pyramid that was supposed to symbolize North Korean greatness. Construction began in 1987. The plan was to finish by 1989, in time for the World Festival of Youth and Students. It was going to be the tallest hotel in the world. Proof that North Korea could compete with the capitalist South. The ultimate architectural propaganda victory. Then the Soviet Union collapsed. North Korea's economy cratered. Construction stopped with the building still an empty concrete shell. For 16 years, it stood unfinished. A ghost building. So embarrassing that the regime literally removed it from official maps and photographs. Eventually, an Egyptian telecom company funded the installation of glass panels on the exterior. The building looks somewhat finished now. But inside, it's still largely empty. The elevators don't work. The rooms don't exist. It's a facade. A building that exists to project an image of capability that North Korea doesn't actually have. And yet, in a strange way, it's perfect Pyongyang. Because the entire city is a facade. The broad streets are mostly empty of cars because almost no one owns one. The beautiful apartment towers are often dark at night because the electricity is unreliable. The shops have goods that most residents can't afford. Pyongyang exists for two audiences: foreign visitors who are shown carefully curated routes through the showcase districts, and the domestic elite who get to live in the facade while the rest of the country struggles. It's a Potemkin city, updated for the 20th century. For decades, Pyongyang's design worked exactly as intended. The population was controlled. Information was restricted. The regime maintained power through architecture as much as through military force. But cracks are appearing. The black market economy that emerged during the famines of the 90s has created unofficial gathering places. Markets where people from different districts actually meet and talk. Smartphones smuggled from China are creating underground networks that bypass the geographic isolation. Defectors describe a slow awakening as people realize through foreign media that their reality isn't the only reality. The regime is responding architecturally. New apartment blocks are taller, more isolated. New districts are further from the center. The surveillance infrastructure is being updated with cameras and monitoring systems. It's an arms race between control and connection. And here's the thing about cities built for control. They're brittle. Organic cities can adapt. When one system fails, others compensate. But planned cities, designed for a specific purpose, struggle when conditions change. Pyongyang was built for a world without internet, without smartphones, without global information flows. The architecture assumed total control that no longer exists. Every year, more information leaks in. More people question. More cracks appear in the facade. The design is still effective. North Korea is still the most closed society on Earth. But the tools of control that worked in 1960 are slowly becoming obsolete. The city that was built to last forever is showing its age. Pyongyang is a masterpiece of authoritarian design. Every wide street, every tower block, every micro-district was planned to reinforce the power of the Kim regime. Its architecture as ideology made physical. But it's also a warning about what happens when cities are designed to control rather than serve their inhabitants. About the costs of treating people as units to be managed rather than citizens to be empowered. About the hubris of believing that any design can control human beings forever. The next time you walk through your own city, pay attention to how it makes you feel, to where you can go easily and where you can't, to whether the spaces encourage gathering or isolation. Because every city embeds values in its design. Most of us just don't notice. Pyongyang makes those embedded values impossible to ignore. And that's why studying it matters. Not because North Korea's approach is something to emulate, but because understanding the extreme helps us see the subtle. The control mechanisms in Pyongyang exist in softer forms everywhere. If you found this perspective interesting, there's more to explore. I'll see you in the next one.